You know, for 600 years, the Ottoman Empire wasn't just a country, it was a global superpower. We're talking about a story of conquest, incredible culture, and just undeniable influence. And all of it? It was built by a handful of really extraordinary leaders. So let's get into it and meet the 7 key sultans who made it all happen. Really, at the heart of this whole thing is a transformation that's just stunning. I mean, think about it, from a tiny little emirate in Anatolia to one of the most powerful empires the world has ever seen. The 7 leaders we're going to talk about, they were the ones who architected that exact change.
All right, so where do we even begin? Well, we're going to start right at the top. We're talking about 2 sultans who represent the absolute pinnacle of Ottoman power, from military might and legal breakthroughs to just breathtaking cultural achievement.
First up, we've got Suleiman. Now, in the West, you've probably heard him called the Magnificent, but inside his own empire, he was known as the Lawgiver. And really, he's arguably the most powerful sultan of them all. His whole legacy is this fascinating split between just relentless conquest on one hand and creating meticulous order on the other.
So what was the secret to his incredible impact? Well, it comes down to this number: 46 years. He was on the throne for 46 years. I mean, in an era of short lifespans and constant political chaos, a reign that long was almost unheard of. It gave him the stability and, more importantly, the time to completely reshape every single part of his empire, from its borders right down to its laws.
And boy, did he use that time effectively. On the battlefield, the guy was relentless. He conquered Belgrade, a city, by the way, that his famous ancestor couldn't even take. He completely crushed the Hungarian army at the Battle of Mohacs. He even laid siege to Vienna itself, striking fear right into the heart of Europe. But his ambition wasn't just about war. He also created what's known as the Kanun-i-Suleimani, which was this incredibly comprehensive legal code that basically provided the entire structure for his vast empire for centuries.
And you know, that Belgrade campaign, it reveals so much about his character. So, right after he takes the throne, Suleiman sends out envoys to demand tribute from the European kings. But the king of Hungary, well, he totally underestimates this new young sultan and has the messenger killed. Big mistake. Suleiman's response was swift and it was furious, and it's captured perfectly in this quote. He didn't hesitate. He immediately raised an army and marched right on Belgrade, which at the time was called the Fortress of Christianity. Now, Suleiman was incredible, but he was building on a foundation that was laid by another legendary figure. We're talking about a man whose name is basically synonymous with conquest itself, Mehmed II. And let me tell you, his ambition and his strategic genius would literally change the map of the world.
Look, the conquest of Constantinople, it wasn't just a battle. It was a complete masterclass in logistics and engineering. Mehmed had these giant cannons forged. We're talking about super weapons for their time. He built a whole new naval fleet from scratch, and he orchestrated this relentless multi-pronged siege. And what was the result? He brought the 1,000-year-old Byzantine Empire crashing down and established a brand new capital for his own empire.
Okay, next up, let's meet 2 sultans who pushed the empire's boundaries in completely different directions. I mean, they dramatically shifted its whole strategic focus. One looked east, right into the heart of the Muslim world, while the other pushed west, deeper and deeper into Europe.
So, we'll kick things off with Selim I. He was known as Selim the Grim, and yeah, it was because of his super serious and intense personality. He inherited an empire that was in total turmoil, but in a surprisingly short reign, just 8 years, he completely changed the empire's entire destiny. And right here, you can see 2 totally clashing imperial visions. On one side, you have Selim. He looked east. He defeated his rivals, the Safavids, and then went on to conquer the Mamluk Sultanate, which brought Syria, Egypt, and the holy cities of Mecca and Medina under Ottoman control. This was a huge deal. It made him the very first Ottoman caliph, the spiritual leader of the entire Sunni Muslim world. Now compare that to his predecessor, Bayezid. He was focused squarely on Europe, crushing a crusader army and cementing Ottoman power in the Balkans. So Bayezid's focus on the West earned him a pretty fearsome nickname, the Thunderbolt. And why was that? Well, it was because of the absolutely shocking speed of his military movements. The guy could march his armies across these vast distances so fast that he just, terrified his European rivals. And with that, he solidified Ottoman dominance for a whole generation.
Okay, our next pair of sultans actually share the same name, Murad. And interestingly enough, they both came to power during these moments of just existential crisis. One had to fight this massive wave of corruption from within the empire, while the other had to face a full-blown invasion from the outside.
So get this, Murad IV takes the throne as a kid, he's just 11 years old, and the empire is basically descending into chaos. The Janissaries, the empire's elite soldiers, they were running wild. Corruption was absolutely everywhere. But when he finally came of age, he seized control with an absolute, almost terrifying ruthlessness.
He basically declared a state of emergency. Any corrupt officials, executed, no questions asked. He totally restored discipline to the army by purging its most rebellious soldiers. He even imposed these really strict social bans. No more coffee houses, no tobacco, no alcohol. And if you disobeyed, the penalty was death. But you know what? His iron-fisted approach? It worked. He stabilized the empire, and that stability allowed him to personally lead the army to recapture Baghdad, which was a huge symbolic victory.
Okay, now let's rewind a bit to an earlier ruler, Murad I. This guy was a foundational conqueror. He was absolutely instrumental in establishing the Ottoman presence in Europe. But for all his incredible victories, he's really remembered most for how his life ended.
This all came to a head at the pivotal Battle of Kosovo, and the stakes could not have been higher. We're talking about total control of the Balkans. The Ottomans won a decisive victory, crushing a coalition of Balkan armies. But right in the aftermath of the battle, Murad I was assassinated by a Serb knight. This made him the only Ottoman sultan to ever die on the battlefield, and it cemented his legacy forever as the martyr.
Okay, so we've seen the empire at its absolute peak, and we've seen it in moments of crisis. Now, I want to go all the way back to the beginning, to the man whose vision started this whole thing.
And this is him, Osman I, the founder of a dynasty and an empire that would carry his name for more than 600 years. And his story starts pretty humbly, really, as the leader of a small Turkish tribe called the Kai.
But see, Osman's real genius wasn't just about winning battles. I mean, yeah, he was successful, he expanded his territory by conquering Byzantine towns, but his true legacy, it was building the institutions of a state. He was the one creating the administrative and military systems that would allow his tiny little principality to not just survive, but to eventually grow into the world-spanning empire we've been talking about.
So after this journey through centuries of rule, what do we take away from all this? What's the collective legacy of these 7 pretty remarkable leaders?
Well, I think their legacy shows that there's no single blueprint for a great leader, right? We've seen conquerors who literally redrew the map. We've seen a lawgiver who brought order to millions. We've seen iron-fisted reformers who saved the state from total collapse, and a visionary founder who laid the groundwork for everything that followed. Each one of them played a vital and totally different role.
And that brings us to a final thought. When you look at the challenges the world is facing today, which one of these leadership styles seems the most relevant? Is it the ruthless reformer, the brilliant strategist, or maybe the patient founder? It's a really fascinating question and definitely one we're thinking about.